All right. Okay, so we're taking a look at Brooke's store today. We're going to be doing a quick audit on Brooke's store. So these audits are not what I would call like a deep dive audit or anything like that. This is a very fast audit where I'm looking for red flags. So an in-depth audit of someone's store would probably take me a good hour or so to go through, which isn't going to be beneficial for the vast majority of people watching a TPT store audit. So just a note that if you see something or like, oh, maybe this or maybe that, this is a very quick surface level audit where we're just looking for big things. And by the way, this audit is part of a coaching call. So if you want to view the entire coaching call, you can find the link to that video inside of the description where you can watch the coaching call as a whole and see all the advice that we're giving when it comes to growing your TPT business. Okay, first of all, your store is gorgeous. Like it's absolutely beautiful. And I told you before we even started recording this episode that there's not a lot that I'm going to be able to say here because it looks really good. And I would encourage anyone who obviously like definitely would discourage from copying any of Brooke's covers and previews and style, but anyone who's wanting to see some really good examples of what covers and previews look like, particularly with mockups, I think that she does a phenomenal job with that, right? These are all mockups, am I right?
They are, and that actually makes me so happy to hear because that's something new I'm trying. I'm sure as you scroll, you'll start to see there aren't as many in resources previous. So that's new. So yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
I love it. In fact, I literally, truly, if you're interested, if you're ever interested in doing some covers and previews for me, you just let me know. Like you just say the word, we can work something. But that was one of the first things that I noticed is that your covers, your previews they're gorgeous. If I take a look at this, and this is one of the things that I'm looking for with a cover is obviously I'm looking for that value grab right here down at the bottom, and my tailwind is, little icon is covering that up. But this 10 unique pages included. That's that value grab that you're putting right there on the cover to highlight the value of your product inside of TPT search. You're using minimal text. Everything's big, bold. Your resources are really colorful and eye-catching. And this is something that I know a lot of us who do like product photography, which I don't do it, I hire it out, but it's expensive to hire that out. So I know that can be really daunting because a lot of times we feel like, oh my goodness, if I want my cover to look like this, I'm going to have to hire that out. And that's really kind of a daunting task. Or I'm going to have to learn how to be a photographer, right? And that's also daunting. So I think that this looks phenomenal. Did you by any chance, are you part of a membership for mockups or take a course or anything on that? Or did you just do this all yourself?
No, I did it myself. I think I got to a place where I felt like some of my resources aren't as colorful. So actually, actually, if you were to download this, it's all black and white.
Of course,
because that's just my style. I'm black and white. And so I realized that even this here, where you have the images, I started to feel like my whole store kind of looked like that, where it's still just the white background, but I wanted to just try something a little bit different, see if it made any changes. I haven't had enough time to really look into the data and see, because I started to really change some covers probably in the last month or so. And I've done a combination. So some of these are mock-ups with just screenshots. Some of them, this one here, the cover of this Thanksgiving packet is actually a photo with my iPhone. But then for a lot of them, I scan my pages. So I answer the questions or, color or whatever. And then I scan them into images and then I place the images because I like to have my handwriting on things or my coloring. I think because not a lot of my resources lend themselves to like clip art and things like that. So it's hard to put the color in there unless I actually do it myself. So preferably I like to scan things and then put those screenshots in because that's really the easiest if I'm doing a color version. But sometimes I still can't always get that to look just quite like I want. So it's trial and error. Lots of
trial and error.
Yeah.
I love that. I never thought of scanning printed, colored image and then putting that into a mock-up. Like maybe everybody does that. I have no clue, but that's a genius idea. And I can scan, I can do that, but the lighting for the photo and everything, it just never ends up right.
Absolutely. And I felt like so what I was doing for a while was fill out the activity and I would take a photo on a white background, just straight up and down, trying to just get a very simple picture of it. But it would never be like, oh, the sizing just wasn't quite right, or I didn't get it right over the top, so it wasn't even. And I don't know, one day it just came to me. I was like, I should just scan this. Surely that looks better. And it has. And it's been nice because then I have them digitally saved as well in just one big PDF versus having to go dig out the actual resource from my files that I had, filled out a while back if I ever want to change it. So
I love that. And one of the reasons why I love having the mock-up or having handwriting on something, even if it's just a font that you've placed. Like, let's just say that, for example, somebody who's watching, doesn't want to print and scan it, like going into Canva or going into PowerPoint and placing like a handwriting type font into those boxes in different colors, can go and using then, instead of maybe coloring these in, using the color version of the clip art for those mock-ups can really help to not only lend visual interest to the product, but it shows that product in action and it helps that teacher. It takes them a little bit further into the buying process where they're visualizing what this would look like for students to use that product, which is really, really helpful. So I love that. One note that I would make, and these are really going to be the only two notes that I have for you, is on your seasonal resources. This is not a blanket statement of this will work for everybody, but one of the things that I would try with some of your seasonal resources and see if it works for you is including grade levels inside of your title and inside of your snippet. So if you're finding that you're having a hard time competing for those competitive search terms like Thanksgiving activities, Thanksgiving writing activities, Thanksgiving grammar worksheets, like things like that, because I can probably guarantee that if I go to TPT and I type in Thanksgiving writing activity, and then I choose a grade level. So let's say I come down here, your 3rd through 5th, right? Okay, so I click 3rd. The number one search result has 2.1 thousand reviews. The last search result on the page has 112 reviews, which means that your product is going to have to sell quite a bit before you're ever able to rank for that broader search term. Now, if they start to include other things like, let's see, this was, so Thanksgiving activities, no prep. So let's say that Thanksgiving writing activity, no prep. And I've still got 3rd selected. Let's see if we would show up for that and tell me if you see yourself. There it is, right?
There it is.
So that's great. But but they would have to select the grade level and type in Thanksgiving writing activity, no prep. It is a lot. One of the things, though, that I've found that people will do is they won't select it down there. They'll just type in 3rd grade. And it's not like a shortcut, like, oh, this is always going to work for you or anything like that. But you can see the first search result now has 24 reviews. TPT search engine does not currently, at the date of this recording, count that keyword as a tag. Like, it's not selecting that as a tag. And so if I go down and do this, like you could be ranking for this as well. And the great thing about this is it allows you to do, like you can see this person did 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. So I'm able to I would take commas out and I would take the ampersand out. So I'm able to, with just minimal keywords, like allow myself to rank for more. So I can Thanksgiving writing activity 3rd grade, Thanksgiving writing activity 4th grade, Thanksgiving writing activity 5th grade, only using 3 characters for those additional grades. It's
right. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Giving me another search term. I would say that this does not work across the board for like every single thing that you do, but I have found in particular for myself that this does work really well for me for seasonal items. So it's just something you could consider.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's funny that you say that because I haven't seen a lot of success with the grade levels in my evergreen resources, but I think that's because when it comes to grammar, let's say, which I have a lot of grammar resources, if you're typing in possessive pronouns, well, that's the title of my resource and you're teaching that in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So I don't think that people are typing the grade level as often. And so that's a good point with the seasonal. I mean, you type in Thanksgiving and you're going to get from K to 12 and then you're right. So that's great.
So one other thing that I'm going to tell you that's also nitpicky.
I like it.
But
that's
what I would be worth it on your product descriptions. Your product descriptions are quite long for something that's a really simple $3 product. I would consider trying to tame it down just a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily get rid of this, but I feel like this right here has all of the information about your product that your buyer needs to know in order to make an informed purchasing decision. So one of the things that I would do is I would come through here through these 3 large paragraphs. And I know you're probably thinking they're not that large. It's technically, this is 2 sentences, but it's 2 very long sentences. One of the things that I like to do with my product description is keep each paragraph at 2 to 3 lines and make them
Okay.
very, very skimmable. This allows the buyer to get down to the meat of what the product includes, those bullet points, a whole lot faster. So I would come in here and I would say, what do I need to pare out? What does my buyer not actually care about for a no prep packet? Right? So I've got to get into the buyer's frame of mind where I've created a no prep activity packet, what is important to them for no prep and what's not important to them for no prep. So talking about like this Thanksgiving activity pack is filled with creative writing activities, word puzzles, joke scramble, all that. You've already got them listed right here. Maybe even coming through here in my classroom, we use these Thanksgiving activities for early finishers. This is like not bad information at all, but I would just consider how can I format or tell them this information in a way that's going to allow them to actually read it and read it quickly.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I know for me personally, if I'm looking for something like, say, a curriculum, a larger purchase, something that I'm going to be using for an extended period of time, I'm more interested in actually reading all of that information. If I'm looking for something that's print and go, I want to know what it is very, very quickly. And if I come to something like this, I'm literally just going and trying to find this right here.
Okay. Yeah.
So we want to get them to that spot faster. And then
That makes
that's
sense. It saves me time to not
yes.
write it all.
It's going to save you so much time. I do love the formatting. I love the use of emojis. I love the fact that you're bolding key pieces of information. I love all of that. I just would say pare it down. And I would say that across the board because I looked at several of your resources and I'm noticing that that's kind of a theme. So we had this escape room. I think this is the one that I looked at earlier. We've got a very lengthy paragraph here. Break that up, figure out how can I get them the information faster. And then also you've got 2 very long bullet points. So that's not necessarily a bad thing to have 2 long bullet points, but just make sure that if we're telling them how easy it is, the instructions and the descriptions read as easy.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So paring down. And one of the things that you can do is don't necessarily think about paring down when you're first writing the description. Write it the way you want to write it, leave it and come back to it and say, okay, now what can I take out? I found if I try to write it the first time and try to like keep everything minimal and pared down, I end up leaving out really key pieces of information that the buyer might actually want to know before making that purchasing decision because I'm so focused on keeping everything pared down and minimal. Whereas if I just say everything that I want to say, then I can come back and I can go, okay, well, that doesn't have to be there, that doesn't have to be there, and that doesn't have to be there. So that's one of the things that I would say, clean up your product descriptions just a little bit and maybe focus on with those seasonal resources using some broader keywords like 3rd grade, like putting those grade levels on there and just see what happens when you do that and just test it. You may find that for some items it works really well. You may find for other items it doesn't work quite as well. But if I can pull things like fun or problem solving that probably nobody is going to type in when they're looking for a Halloween activity and replace them with keywords that they might actually use, then I'm definitely going to be doing that. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great.
That's really it. Everything looks phenomenal.
Thank you.
Okay. So we took a look at Brooke's store and we noticed just a couple of small things in her store. Overall, your store looks phenomenal. It looks amazing.